So when it came to pursuing a career, a lot of women had an idea of like what that life would look like, right? Like, especially like after graduating college, they had the idea that, you know what, after I graduate college, I'm gonna move to the big city, I'm gonna get into the corporate life, I'll be able to wear my little pantsuit, and it's gonna be very exciting, right? It's gonna be fast paced, it's gonna be a lot of energy, and this is something that appeals to a lot of especially young women, right? They look at that idea whether they've seen in magazines and movies, and they see women living this very corporate life where it's just fast paced and exciting. And a lot of women have been sold this idea that, that's something what they're going to like. But then as they get older and time goes by and you're going through the corporate grind and you're competing with other people that are trying to move up the corporate ladder, a lot of these women come to the realization that, you know what, it's not what I thought it was going to be. This for some reason, this doesn't excite me. Right. And in this video, I have a woman here who's going to talk about that very same experience. So let's hear what she has to say, and then I'll share my thoughts.
A lot of my friends in our early 30s, late 20s are going through this moment of shift where we spent so much time wanting to be like a boss ass bitch, wanting to be like an executive, wanting to kill it and crush in our careers. So like kind of just wanting to chill, like not wanting the stress, wanting to travel, wanting to have flexibility. Maybe it's just like as we get older, we realize what's actually important in life, and it's just like not within those four walls. Maybe it's we have redefined or are redefining what success looks like and feels like. I know for me, I spent, a good amount of my career on Wall Street, not in a front office seat to be clear, but still you get attached to like this image of success. And I think once we hit a certain age, we start to actually identify what success means for us. Just an observation.
Exactly. Well, you know what, see, that's the thing, right? When you start hitting those 30s, when that 30 starts creeping around, you start thinking, you start reprioritizing, like, okay, what's important to me? And I've done a bunch of videos, right, where I reacted to a lot of women, and they talk about how, working a 9-to-5 corporate life, how they don't want to do it anymore, right? Like a lot of these women, like when it comes down to it, they just don't want to work. Like they don't want to go through that grind, the corporate grind of climbing that corporate ladder, because, for guys, right? It's not like a lot of guys, and this obviously for the guys in that corporate space, right? It's not like they do that because they like it or it's something that excites and that's what they want to do. They do it because they understand that in order to make the money or find the level of success, they have to compete amongst other people that are also trying to climb that corporate ladder, right? It's a competition. And for a lot of men, they understand it's like a lot of men, thrive on this, right? It's not to do with to find happiness. It's like, all right, in order to get to where I want to go in a certain position and make the amount of money, I know I'm gonna have to compete with other people. And for a lot of women, they don't want to have to go through it because it's very stressful, right? It takes a lot of toll on the mental health. And for some women, it's not something that makes them happy. It's not fulfilling to them. Right. And you hear this all the time. Like when you do the videos, they just talk about it. It's like, you know what? I'd rather, instead of doing the corporate life, going through that corporate grind, I'd just rather go to a lesser job, make less money, and deal with less stress. Right. And then especially when you start hit your 30s, then you start to say, like, is this something that really makes me happy? Right. Because when she talks about success, what success looks like, success is not corporate America, not, Wall Street. Right, it's not being this boss babe. Deep down, what it's really about is family, right? It's being a wife to a husband, raising children, right, together, building that family, and that's what really makes a lot of these women happy. And you'll hear a lot of women talk about, I don't want to have to deal with stress with kids. It's all lies. It's all coping, right? It's all coping. A lot of these women are probably older, and they know that they know that a lot of dudes are not looking for them, so they probably won't ever achieve that. So they find a reason to say, building families is overrated, children are overrated. It's all types of nonsense, which are not true. But when you start really approaching those 30s and you start to really start thinking about, okay, what's important? Obviously, for a lot of women, it's just having family, right? Having a husband, raising children, and and they're conflicted, right? And this is where the conflict comes, right? Because women don't want to really work, right? They don't want to deal with the stress of working, right? However, they don't also want to be dependent on men, right? And this is where a lot of the conflict comes because, they know they need the money, but they don't want to work. But in order to do that, they got to find somebody that's going to provide that for them. But they don't want to be restricted from a man. You see a lot of these women like, oh my God, being married. A lot of people are miserable. I don't want these type of men where it's going to, restrict me or, not allow me to do the things that I want to do. And you hear this a lot from a lot of these women. So it's like, what do I do? Like, do I continue to keep working so I can make my money even though I'm not going to be happy? Or do I find a husband that's going to be a provider for me? And, maybe I'm not going to have that same level of freedom, but at least I know I'm going to have someone that's going to allow me to be in my feminine and allow me the freedom to not have to stress and worry about money so much. All right. But, for a lot of these women, and you got to understand, like, climbing this corporate ladder, being this boss babe, right? It's a very masculine trait, right? It's very masculine. You have to be to go out there and compete every day with people that are trying to get the same position as you. It's a very masculine trait, okay? And you're talking about women that have been doing this for their whole 20s and now going up into their 30s. It's hard. They've had to deal with that masculine identity and now transition back to a feminine identity is very difficult. So now let's say you're trying to find a man that, maybe she starts to think about, I want to find a man that, if I find a husband and start raising children with. Well, if you're still taking on those masculine attributes, like, a lot of dudes are going to be turned off by that. Right? They're gonna say, you know what? I don't know if if they're dealing with you, they find you attractive, but then they start having conversations with you. They start saying, you know what? I'm not really feeling it because you come across as not that feminine, and it's gonna turn a lot of dudes off, depending on the guy, especially the guy that you're probably gonna want. They're gonna see that and just gonna be like, yeah, you know what? Maybe this doesn't work because you come off as too masculine, and it's all because this whole time you've had to take on that masculine trait. Working your way up corporate America, competing with other people, and it's like making money and just trying to make a name for yourself. And it's hard for you to just flip that switch back to the feminine because you've been doing it your whole, for the past decade. And for a lot of women, they find difficulty in doing that. So it's tough, right? And that's for a lot of women, like going on pursuing this whole career thing, corporate America. Like, a lot of men understand, like, we know this is not what they like, right? They've been sold this image that, yeah, this is where you should go and this is where you should pursue. But then as time goes on and you climb that corporate ladder, a lot of these women fall off and just say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. They don't want to do it anymore. It's just, it's not fulfilling. They're just unhappy. Right? And a lot of women do it all the time. They say, I'm just going to find a lesser job where I don't have to deal with that stress, where I can work, 40 hours and then be out. Right? Because when you work in corporate America, you're working more than 40 hours, right? Men are out there, working 50, 60 hours just trying to compete and climb that corporate ladder. And you hear it in her voice where she's talking about, like, she's trying to redefine what success is. Right? When in reality it's always been, having, getting married and raising a family, right? With children. Right? For a lot of these women, there's no happiness in just pursuing that career, even though a lot of women lie to you today and say, yeah, they're happy and like this is what I want. I mean, deep down we know that's a lie. So just coping, right? But that's when reality hits, is when you start approaching those 30s, right? You start approaching those 30s and that wall starts coming. You're like, damn, like what am I doing with myself? Like what, like is this it? Like, is this it? There's gotta be more. And she said, like, these women just want to chill. They want to relax. They want to be in their feminine, right? But it's hard to do that if when it comes to income, paying your bills, your bills are relied 100% on you, right? You got to take care of 100% of your bills, right? You don't have that other person, that husband, that spouse that's gonna help you when it comes to paying those bills. So it's a prize. You got to make. It's a trade-off in life. Like, what do you want? You want your independency, and you make all your money, but you got to deal with that stress, or you may be relying on with a man, right? That's gonna help provide for you. But that's the choice a lot of these women, you got to decide. So those are my thoughts. Interested to hear your thoughts. Make sure to leave a comment down below, hit the like button, share, and if you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe. All right, guys, take care. Have a good one. Later.